Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, can you hear me?
Yes, Tapas. If you just speak into the screen, I think then your voice is much better.
Okay, okay. Now it is audible. I am audible.
Now it's clear.
Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, welcome all of you in today's webinar that is called the AMR and Sustainability Antibiotic Manufacturing Practices in India. And this program, first one thing I want to tell that on behalf of CEP, the Council of EHS Professionals, that we do this type of various type of knowledge sharing session under this platform of the CEP last 5 years, and it is an NGO, and we do more than 150 program we have done in Hyderabad and across countries also. And this is the first time we are doing in the joint collaboration with the RAM and the NIPER. And we have more than 3,000 EHS professionals in this group. And we do, as I told, that is totally voluntary organization, and we do only for knowledge sharing. There is no without any charges or fees or something like that. But now, out of 3,000 professionals, more than 80% of our associates from the pharma industries only. That is when we got this request from the Nitin and Siddharth that why we should not do that program on AMR on this platform. Then we have happily agreed for that. As you know that antibiotic manufacturing for across the globe, this is one of the burning topics today. So that everybody, those who are in the pharma industries, we should know that how AMR is impacting in our environment. At the same time, also now it is not only the environment, it is a business requirement also. Like you know that in pharma sector, USFDA audit, how important. Like that, many customers also now very focused on that AMR, antimicrobial resistance in environment. And many companies also working very closely how to address this issue, and many NGOs globally also they are part of this thing, because India is one of the major hub of the AMR antibiotic manufacturing. That is why it is very important for us. Just I want to give one small example, probably it will be helping to all of us. See how important we measure that antibiotic in environment in terms of PNAC value. That is predicted no effect concentration, like a TLV, TW, whatever. And you know that most of the antibiotics, which is a PNAC value is less than 1 ppb, it is microgram per liter. If you see that, for example, if you take one antibiotic, if we having that dosage is 500 milligram dose in one antibiotic tablet, if it go to the environment, it needs 500 kL of water to make it the PNAC value. If it is 2 tablets gone in the 500 kL of water, then PNAC value becomes double. That means how important that antibiotic, if it is goes to the environment. It is a ppb only. That is the important thing. The 500 milligram of tablet is enough to reach that PNAC value of 500 kL of water. 500 kL means 5 lakhs liter of water. If we put 2 tablets, it becomes double in the 5 lakhs liter of water. That is why it is so important today that antibiotic, what we are manufacturing, it should not go to the environment. If it is go to the environment, before that we have to deactivate. First, it should not go. Or if at all it is going to the water or wastewater, because the process, all the process is very complex process, it cannot be possible to retrieve 100% of the antibiotic from the wastewater also. It will be going by design, by chemistry. But if it is going to the wastewater, it has to be deactivated before discharging, if at all. But in Hyderabad, the advantage is that we have the most of the facility, the zero liquid discharge is not going. But if it is at all going, then it has to be deactivated. Otherwise, it is very difficult to control. In that perspective, what I see that today's seminar, a lot of expertise are here, and they will give the outlook how to address this issue. And it is one, as I told you, one of the burning topics today, and it is very good knowledge sharing session it will be, and all the participants will be getting a lot of benefit out of that. That is from my side, and I'm going to get it over to you.
Thank you, Tapas. So I would like to invite Mr. N. Yuvraj, Joint Secretary, Policy Department of Pharmaceuticals, to give the keynote address. Welcome, sir.
So good afternoon to all of you. Very happy to be here in this webinar on the on the crucial topic also. And the first point, I also congratulate my thanks to NIPER Hyderabad Director, Shashibala Madam. So who has been, when we requested Madam to organize this sort of a webinar, she told that we, Madam will be able to organize through involving both our RAMP, Responsible Antibiotic Manufacturing Platform, as well as our by the Council of VHS Professionals. So thanks, Madam, for organizing this for all our PLI participants to create an awareness about the sustainable antibiotic manufacturing practices in India, which is a good topic for the day today. And I am also known, recently get to know about this RAMP, the platform, and I also met with other people. So this is the way forward to see that necessary awareness is created about this topic also. The 2-3 points from my side from the departmental side are as below. One, we know that India is the pharmacy of the world, and our generic drugs are being exported and being used by over 150 countries, and the US and UK also has substantial savings due to our production of the generic drugs and other drugs, because it is a pharmacy of the world, both on vaccine front and also on the medicine side, and we are slowly emerging on the biopharma side also. Second issue is about the being a second populated country in the world. We also have our own needs of medicines. It is not only for global needs. We also have a growing domestic needs for various drugs. And third thing is we also should see in the perspective that the environmental issues and also about the issues about antibiotic resistance are catching the attention of all the people, not only to the government, also not only to the NGOs, but also to the institutions and also to the public as well, larger public as well. So the awareness is created in so much so that the patients are asking once or twice before getting a prescription from a doctor about an antibiotic, whether it is absolutely needed and how to avoid resistance to develop, because it is the awareness is slowly spreading. Thanks to the scientific community and other NGOs acting in this front. And you are aware, and all the people here are aware, that in the international forums like G20 and other places also, AMR is a regular topic, and each country has their own plan. Like state and countries, everybody is responsible, and healthy being a public health subject, states are given a constitutional role more than the central government. But on the manufacturing side, same thing, like the licenses are issued by the state government for most of the drugs, except for the few drugs, new drugs, where central drug regulators gives the approval. So that being the case, the responsibility is of all of us. As a community, we are responsible, because we are going to hand over this earth to our coming generations. So there should be a livable place for all the people who are going to live in this earth for millions of years, like we got after so many millions of years a chance to live in this earth. So it's like a country. So now how effectively we will be able to achieve this particular issue is the one concern. Today's topic, we are restricting only ourselves about the manufacturing practices. Like I just wanted to put some of the perspective that yes, government and the industry, they are also aware about the various effective if a effluent treatment plant is not properly running. Over the years, thanks to various initiatives by the government, also by the intervention by the industries, also due to the various court orders, and also in the recent court orders by the NGT like tribunals. So there are some norms have been established, which the norms, the good thing is about it, norms are known to the people as well. That what should be the way how a polluting industry has to work within the confinement. If you know, recently I come from Tamil Nadu, so where the textile related issues like dyeing factories, after a lot of deliberations, Supreme Court order came, and now they are going based on a comprehensive ETPs or by a zero discharge basis. So now people are going slowly that particular areas. Our pharma industry, because I joined here and working for the last 10 months, our pharma industry is also keeping up that morale. And Indian pharma industries, because when you are going to export to your international market, as to highly regulated market like Europe countries as well as USA's, the standards are quite high. Like we have a WHO GMP practice, other issues like EU GMPs and other issues where our manufacturers are sticking to that norms. For example, we all know that Indian pharma industry has highest US FDA approved manufacturing plants high after USA in India only. So it means that quality matters, and we are able to stick to the manufacturing standards, highest standards, which are expected by our promoters. Now there may be incidences which requires the attention of the industry first more than anybody else, because it is if a small incident happens elsewhere, it is going to affect the industry first, not to the anybody else. So industry as an association, we are in regular touch with the industries to highlight them about the good manufacturing practices. For example, just to give you a recent input, that yesterday our Honorable Minister has launched a scheme. The scheme is oriented for the MSME pharma industry. What for individual units to upgrade themselves to WHO GMP standards. Okay. So we are giving a capital subsidy or interest subvention up to 1 crore for a 10 crore project. So we have also asked that this is only for the quality upgradation. This is only for the quality upgradation. So we are able to cover almost like a 400 years, and even MSME sector also we may be having around out of total number of maybe 4,000 to 6,000, we may be having around 1,000, maybe already having a WGMP standard. So over the years, if you increase your standards of manufacturing and complying to all the norms, including the antibiotic residues in the effluent, there we are able to manufacturing practices in the country. And on this behalf today, I hope that most of our PLI participants have joined with the effort of our NIPER Hyderabad, and also both RAMP as well as with the help of the ECI. So now what we request the manufacturers present here, that please document and share your website what are the various measures you are taking about the environmental side of the manufacturing, especially on the AMR side. Maybe because some of the other day the bulk drug manufacturing association people have came and represented that. Sir, we have done 2 studies with Hyderabad University and 1 more studies with another institution sponsored by us, because we sponsored the entire studies, and the studies have came out inspecting some of the manufacturing facilities, antibiotic residues, and it was found that we are following the norms. So most of the studies have reflected that one. So I want the industries to come and share that what you are doing for this particular topic, so that everybody knows, like the scientific community knows, NIPER like institutions knows, and also the platform like RAMP or other people knows that what our industry does. Because as in 1 or 2 reporting or 1 or 2 deviations will be sufficient to damage the good work done by you. So better that you voluntarily stick to the standard. I hope that most of the state pollution control boards follow the norms. Otherwise, it's not possible to allow the manufacturing. So accordingly, they will be able to do it. And also, I wanted to tell 2 things, because I'm talking from the government and a governmental perspective. We also support in the pharma clusters for a CETPs. We supported 2 such cases, and yesterday we launched a scheme wherein we are ready to support 20 such cases, not only for CETPs and also for research facilities as well as for the lab facilities as well. It is like a common infrastructure facility which will be able to reduce expenditure from an individual unit to be used for this particular purpose. The details of the schemes are already available on the website, and SIWI is the project monitoring agencies. Now the clusters can utilize this facility also, like BDMA has already submitted that they want to upgrade the existing CETPs, and a state like other states, especially some states, have mandated 0 discharge, so that no treatment effluent goes out of the manufacturing site or the cluster also. So all these efforts will lead to situations wherein most of the manufacturing facilities are following the norms and live up to the expectation. The standard fixation, how much effluent antibiotic residues is allowable or what is not allowable, or the domain of the scientific people. We have NIPERs here, we have pollution control board experts also there who will decide, but the industry is there to follow those norms. So we are talking to the industries today predominantly. So my as a departmental representative, I feel that the industry is following the norms broadly, and you are sticking to the norms as mandated by the various orders of the Ministry of Environment and Forest, as well as by the State Pollution Control Board in this regard. And also, this may be one of the conditions also under the Drug and Cosmetics Act. So you are mandated also, and you may be seeking some assistance for this purpose as a common infrastructure, like a CETP, other things from the MOEFCC, and also from department, also from some other cluster schemes from the MSME and other ministries. Now, my request here to NIPER and other scientific community present here, the big manufacturers or the mega manufacturers will be able to spend sufficient money from the turnover money for this erecting the various facilities to stick to the norms. But now what I request is, yesterday also we requested, our minister also has highlighted that the small pharma clusters, they may be advised to contact the nearby NIPERs, and NIPERs can provide them the technical assistance and what are the measures that they can take that can be helpful to have this one. Also, they can do a demand-based research in this area. For example, if a high-end solution is costing too much money, whether we can have some other research areas wherein we can be able to reduce the expenditure to be done by the small clusters or small manufacturing clusters, wherein the same output of environmental adherence can be attained. So we request Sashibala madam and madam's team, NIPERS, and all the NIPERs also in this regard, to work with the neighboring clusters, pharma clusters. We will also write the pharma clusters to approach you, and not only to you. Maybe the clusters may contact other scientific institutions also, so that a good academia and industry linkages happens in this area, wherein the industry get benefited from the scientific advice from the academic side in this area. Because most of the work has to be done by the industry at the end of the day. Whether you tell or RAM, DOP tell or MOFC tell, the industry has to do. So it should be a solution which can be easily implementable, mandatory through various statutes, and also it will be a easily available technique in India, or it can be an adopted technique in India, so that it will be easily scaled up and used by all the people, because we have so many manufacturing facilities and so many people have to adopt. And also in this regard, I think because I'm not the competent authority as a department, MOEFC is the Environment Forest is the department, is one which has the mandate to fix the various residue level in various effluents as per the scientific norms. So that norms has to be followed by one and all. And we also have PLI participants here. I hope that as a PLI participants, we have from pharma side, both the schemes put together, we have around 106 people under our scheme. Maybe 106 project, maybe some company may be having multiple projects also. So these people, we request that, so you are requested to document on what you're doing on this front and share with us, so that we can host it on our website also, that these are the good initiative done by the PLI participant on this front, especially on the good manufacturing as well as the antibiotic, where we are focusing today on the issue of sustainable antibiotic manufacturing practices in India. So these are my remarks, and department is always open to suggestion from the industry as well as by the organizers like RAMP and ECI, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. I think you made some excellent points. We are very excited as the responsible antibiotic manufacturing platform and NIPER and the partners as well to welcome what you have said. And we look forward to working with you. As you mentioned, you're setting up 26 new CTPs and labs. And we were actually looking at setting up a center of excellence to work with NIPER and the industry and government to actually look at a public-private partnership where we can bring in, as you said, the academic expertise, the scientific expertise, but also the industry operational excellence and global best practices to have a center of excellence that builds the capacity of everybody from the industry to the EHS professionals here to the state and central pollution control boards, so that they can effectively monitor the pollution levels, regulate it, but also build the laboratory capacity so that people don't have to send their samples abroad to make sure that the quality adherence is there. everything can be done locally in India. So we will be working as RAMP and NIPER and our partners to take this forward, and look forward to your support as well, and bring in the pharma clusters and encourage industry to work with us. So with that, I would now like to invite Dr. Shashibala Singh, Director NIPER Hyderabad, to set the context for this workshop. Thank you.
Good afternoon and namaskar to everyone who has joined us online. Thank you for the remarks by Mr. Yuvraj, Joint Secretary at DOP. And also my heartiest welcome to all the resource speakers, participants from industry, academia, and R&D institutes. I think at the outset, I want to thank that we have NIPER Hyderabad in collaboration with RAMP, Responsible Antibiotic Manufacturing Platform, and Council of EHS Professions is organizing this webinar on AMR and sustainable antibiotic manufacturing practices in India. I think we all know about antimicrobial resistance. It is one of the important problems which is brewing at a very high speed. And now we are involving some of the methods like into a potential public, it may lead to potential public health emergency, and it is on the cusp of threatening our medical fraternity in near future. Keeping this threat as one of the important threat, even Government of India along with DOP has taken a lot of initiatives. We have Center for a Cellular and Molecular Platform, CMAP, which is from the Department of Biotechnology, has also established Indian AMR Innovation Hub, IAIH, with a vision to bring out AMR burden in India by combining national efforts to tackle the global health challenges. When we look at this AMR, I think there are a lot of challenging issues which we are facing, and we need to address them. And one of the best way to address them is by doing R&D innovation, STI, science, technology, innovation. A few things which are coming to my mind is, one is this antimicrobial resistance. We should be focusing our efforts in some of the R&D direction. Like one is having this antibiotic from natural sources like fungi, bacteria. And we can have a consortium where NIPER can play important role, some of the R&D institute in India and also abroad. And to wherever we have BSL-3 facilities, we should be tackling this problem. We should be sort of innovating and looking forward some of the antibiotics which may be derived from the natural sources. Other thing which comes to my mind is how do we sort of enhance already existing antibiotics, like and role of adjuvant. Again, this is very important. How do we enhance the antibiotic activity of some of the naturally occurring molecules or semi-synthetic? So adjuvant as a bioenhancer again is the area which we need to be tackling. Then drug repurposing is again area where you don't have to bring in many regulatory bodies into action. And then this is far, and also because of the fast track approval, one can think of some of the peptides or other moieties which can be used as an antibiotic. Other things which we need to be sort of working on is mainly antibiotic detection lab, because we have this antibiotic overload everywhere, which can be seen in the effluent, which can be seen in the water bodies, which can also be seen in the soil. But then, how do we sort of understand, how do we know what are the levels? We should be able to have this detection lab, maybe in every block, maybe, so that we monitor it in water, drainage, animal products, even in soil. Other things are proper surveillance mechanism to regulate status of antibiotic use. I know that most of the time when you go to a doctor, they prescribe antibiotic, and this is one of the major cause of having more antibiotic resistance. Then how do we, the most important point, which is from the government point of view and so also from the ecosystem and environmental thing, is how do we sort of have these manufacturing plants which are green and clean technologies can be used, and how do we treat the effluent? Effluent, can be units which are co-located. Effluent treatment can be at one place. And also, how do we minimize use of antibiotic even in dairy industry? The way even animal are being fed with antibiotic for many reasons. And then also in India, OTC, over the counter availability of antibiotic. Again, we should be sort of have some kind of mechanism in place which can minimize or optimize use of antibiotic. Then for this, what is important is the training, awareness program for pharmacists, and effective communication and training program. Here, between the doctor and the patient, the pharmacist can play a very, very important role. So all these are some of the points which are coming to my mind. And of course, as government is laying a lot of emphasis, our minister, Honorable Minister, keep on talking about industry academia linkages. And this is a very important step forward to take academia with academia and the industry, because we have some expertise which we need to synergize with the industry, which is located in and around, maybe at Hyderabad or many other places wherever these R&D institutes are there. So it is important that we need to collaborate. We need to understand the problem. We need to find a solution which is workable, which is eco-friendly, and which can be done only by understanding all the stakeholders which are there. I find a lot of interesting topics which are going to be covered in this webinar, and I hope this will sort of give us a forward way. How do we sort of tackle this antimicrobial resistance? What are the sustainable solutions which can be taken forth? I also feel all the stakeholders which are there here with us today, and it is a responsibility of each one of us to work together to make things happen. And so I also acknowledge the efforts of the Responsible Antibiotic Manufacturing Platform, RAM, in organizing this webinar, by bringing together all the stakeholders in this important mission. I'm sure at this webinar will throw more light on the future steps to be taken in the direction, and I wish the program a great success. Thank you, organizers. I also want to thank Dr. Yuvraj, JSDOP. Thank you, Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for also being a co-host for this webinar. And also, we really look forward to, as Dr. Yuvraj has said, and you have said that your NIPER, I think, has a very catalytic role to actually facilitate the industry public scientific partnership so that we can jointly address these issues and meet the global challenges of sustainability in the whole issue of antibiotic manufacturing, production, use, and the One Health approach to addressing the challenge of AMR. So welcome. I'm Siddharth Prakash. I'm the director at Shoreview Consulting. I'm also the manufacturing coordinator for the Responsible Antibiotic Manufacturing Platform. And I will be sharing our experiences in terms of just showing you a little bit about the global changes in procurement practices and what RAMP is trying to do to solve these challenges. And then we'll also have presentations from one of our partners, Singh Pharmaceuticals, who is a global leader in sustainability and also has a plant in Punjab. They'll be talking about how they have achieved 100% sustainability globally and in India. So lots to learn from. And then my colleague Nitin will be also talking a little bit about this new center of excellence that we are setting up. And we really look forward to working with Mr. Yuvraj and Dr. Singh with NIPER to set this up to have a state-of-the-art center of excellence for sustainable antibiotic manufacturing in India. So I hope you can all see my screen.
Yes.
So I think we all know that, AMR is a complex issue. There are human side, there's animal side, there's sewage side, there's industry side. And we know that in certain hotspots, as we mentioned, there is environmental pollution from antibiotic manufacturing. And Yuvraj mentioned the NGT case as well. But globally, there's been little action to raise awareness and identify solutions to the problem. The incentives for action have not been in place. Regulations have not been introduced globally. So we need to have a marshalling of collective action, which has suffered from a lack of direction, responsibility, and clarity for all parties concerned. And I'm happy to say that we have, I think, representatives from the European Union and the UK government present here today. And also the WHO and UNEP have identified this is a major challenge and are providing guidance to manufacturers and their suppliers to improve their practices. And we're seeing that governments and global pharma are adopting new environmental criteria for the procurement of pharmaceuticals due to international pressure. The Nordic countries' drug procurement policy, for example, so suppliers that document good environmental efforts during the manufacturing process will be awarded contracts. So a number of countries like Norway have actually gone so far as to allocate 30% weightage points for sustainability in their procurement selection criteria. So sustainability is becoming an increasingly important factor, as the earlier speakers said, and several MNCs are exiting local suppliers with poor management systems, which could undermine India's comparative advantage in terms of low price, good quality drugs. And we also see the changing landscape in terms of how global investors are looking at green manufacturing. So global investors, financial institutions like the World Bank, are setting new standards to achieve sustainable development goals. As they shift towards green finance investments, they will evaluate companies against these benchmarks when making investment decisions. Just to give an example, in November 2020, 12 large investors and financial institutions representing $5 trillion formed the Investor Action on AMR initiative. As part of the larger environmental social goals perspective, an AMR lens would screen companies for poor performance and exclude those that fail to adapt to good standards. Companies that adapt sustainable manufacturing practices, many of which are here today, would gain the first mover advantage in mobilizing green investments for business expansion. But as Yuvraj also mentioned, I think the challenge is with the SMEs, and that's where we need to come together. And this is just one example. So a recent UK procurement tender, it clearly says that it is looking also, amongst other things, at high environmental standards. And if these high environmental standards are not met, there would be immediate disqualification. Suppliers need to provide sufficient evidence in qualitative terms that is convincing and credible. And so here, I think, what Mr. Yuvraj mentioned a couple of times, the industry needs to come forward and document good practices. What is the cost of action? So the cost burden will primarily fall on local suppliers and exporters through investments in new practices and technologies. And this will depend on the level of ambition as well as the scope of the problems that need to be addressed. Investments can range from behavioral changes to upgrades in treatment facilities to changes in process design. Many practice-based changes can be made to reduce API emissions that do not require large capital and infrastructure costs. For example, GSK has met all its environmental standards by minimally changing its environmental safety policies. And here we see there's a global AMR benchmark report done by the Access to Medicines Foundation. And you see the global large research-based companies are scoring quite high, but on the right side, we see generic medicine manufacturers. So we see Aurobindo at 71%, Cipla at 60%, Teva at 60%. So they're all beginning to reach very high levels of sustainability. But then there are other companies also, I think, which are just beginning their journey, and they need support from the scientific community and the industry that is here and the government. These are some examples of cost-effective process improvements from ZLD to looking at API filtration systems, ozone treatment, and also incineration of solid waste. So the Responsible Antibiotic Manufacturing Platform, which emerged about 2 years ago, is a public-private partnership supported by the Swiss government. And it really envisions that by 2030, the release of antibiotics to the environment from manufacturing is minimized. Where broader sustainability gains have been achieved in partnership with industry, governments, international agencies, and other stakeholders to provide a competitive advantage to the implementing companies and ensure access to functional antibiotics that have been manufactured in a manner that does not promote AMR. And what RAMP does is, as we are doing today, is create awareness, commitments, collaboration from our partners, look at training and capacity building needs. And there are different approaches. So monitoring is being done by concentration-based approaches, mass balance, analytical measures, what IIT Mumbai is coming up with sensor technologies. On the other hand, we have best available technology approaches, Oxidation, LLD, and others. But what's happening is that there is a challenge between these different things, and the system of verification of data processes is still not clear. So, the data is not available. There are no proper norms for monitoring it internationally or globally. So what RAMP really is trying to do is to look at the testing, the treatability, the technologies and processes to solve these issues in a transparent, open, multi-stakeholder platform. And how we do this is we have essentially the platform which is doing stakeholder engagement. We have the manufacturing work stream, which is looking at doing baseline surveys, verification to understand global best practices and how they are being implemented in India. We look at the procurement landscape and how, as I mentioned, the global procurement changes that are happening in Europe, but also trying to work with our partners to have a uniform, comprehensive, harmonized system of procurement so that it is easily understood and implemented by countries. And then looking at solutions. So looking at whether it is IIT Mumbai that has come up with a new sensor technology for monitoring antibiotics, or companies globally that have come up with latest technology solutions to reduce further the antibiotic residues in the environment. And we work at the company, pharma, and state AMR action plan level. So we're doing factory audits. We are working with CETPs as well as the state governments to design their state AMR action plan. Some of our collaborative partners in India include the Amr Industry Alliance, UNEP, European Union, Karnataka Industry Association, the 2030 Water Resources Group of the World Bank, the governments of Karnataka, Telangana, and Maharashtra. And also through the work we've been doing in advocacy, we've seen that a number of state policies are looking at sustainable farmer production in their policies as well. So Karnataka came up with the industrial policy in 2021, which supports sustainable and green pharmaceutical manufacturing. To this end, it provides funding for factory audits, sewage treatment plants, common effluent treatment plants, and farmer parks. The Maharashtra government, with the support of RAMP and the WRG, established a new task force on AMR with a focus on responsible antibiotic manufacturing. And the Telangana government were in talks with them to support a center of excellence for sustainable antibiotic manufacturing. So with that, I'll stop, and maybe we can take 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions from the previous presenters or my presentation, we could answer them. Please raise your hands in the, you can press the raise hand button and we can take questions.
I have a few points to make. Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you please state your name before speaking so that it's easy for us to spot you?
Yeah. This is Ishwar Reddy, Executive Director, BDMA. Are you able to spot me?
Yes, sir. I put you on spotlight, sir.
Yeah. Can I put forward some points based on the earlier presentation?
Yes, please. Please go ahead.
Yeah. In fact, this is Mr. Siddharth knows we have been participating in various seminars organized by them, and we have been also interacting very closely with various organizations. One thing is that I would like to again put forward, as Director NIPER had mentioned, that the AMR is a global issue, and secondly, it is an issue which cannot be attributed exclusively for antibiotics manufacturing. It also relates to excessive use of antibiotics, excessive use of antibiotics in animal husbandry and poultry, the untreated sewage of discharge of sewage into the natural drains. In fact, it is reported that the AMR contribution to AMR through antibiotic manufacturing could be only 5%. Of course, nevertheless, it does not mean that we should not proactively take action. But however, this problem globally and universally can be solved only if it is attacked from all the sides. It is not just limited to. So we do not know what the government or what these voluntary agencies are also doing towards controlling AMR through restricted use of antibiotics, controlled use of antibiotics in animal husbandry, and also see that no untreated sewage is discharged into the natural drains. Now, second thing is proactively, as a responsible body manufacturing antibiotics, we wanted to see what exactly is that, and then we have sponsored a very detailed project with University of Hyderabad to study the issue of AMR, whether it is linked to whether it is linked to the manufacture of antibiotics. The detailed report now we have put it on the website, and anybody can access and see. And it has been reported after a detailed study over a period of 1 year by University of Hyderabad that it cannot be directly attributed to antibiotics manufacturing and the AMR because they have done detailed study around industrial clusters, and they have also done a detailed study at least 50-60 kilometers away from the industrial clusters, and the results are almost comparative. Now, third one is we have been advising industry, and industry is also adopting. One good thing which we would like to announce is that most of the industries are now going in for ZLD systems. That means I totally avoid discharge of any effluents into the natural drains and have a closed loop system, recycle all the water what is recovered and send the solids for either co-insulation of cement plants or secured landfill and all. With this, we feel that any antibiotics, untreated antibiotics going to let us say in the environment or untreated natural drains is avoided. The industry, I would also say that the industry now is also working on some advanced oxidation technologies, where in the first cut, though it is mentioned that the first cut we'll send it to incineration and all, even incineration of aqueous liquor is quite a problematic. Most of them may not be able to afford. Probably we extract it from solvent and then try to treat it separately, or go for advanced oxidation using either Fenton or ferrate technologies, or nowadays theriols are developed. So this could address, and the PNEC levels are so low that it would be very, very difficult. In fact, recently there was a High Court judgment saying that the suggested standards should be adopted till the final standards are finalized by the MOEF and CPCB. And it was ordered that at least we reach the PNEC levels of treatment and then discharge. If we can reach that, nothing like that. In fact, that is much greater level of treatment than any other thing. So it may be practically not. And lastly, still the AMR standards are, there's a lot of controversy going on, lot of discussions going on. That's why even in the MOEF and CPCB are still not finalized. And secondly, these AMR standards, we cannot simply copy some global standards and follow, because ours is a tropical country where the normal temperatures are around 30 to 35 degrees, whereas most of the developed countries, whether European countries or other cold countries, most of the time they are at sub-zero. Sub-zero, your biological activity is much more restricted as compared to a tropical atmosphere. So the standards what have to be put is also very challenging, where actually the academia and the research institutions and the industry have to come forward and really arrive at a reasonable and useful standards. And even the testing of the antibiotic effluents itself is a big task. These are the things which I want to say. So we look forward that while the industry is putting all efforts, and we will also help the industry and guide the industry and request the industry to take all possible steps. Nevertheless, this August body should also, the department also should look at addressing the issues of AMR caused due to other sources. And second thing is, for the industry, at least you get a cluster which can be identified and then provide a solution centralized in the clusters. Whereas suppose a release of antibiotics through excessive use in medical treatment or poultry or animal husbandry or anti-research, it is spread out all over the country. There will be thousands and thousands of spots where this will be released. How do we control this? This is a challenging task which has to be addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. We are well aware of the studies that you have done on the good work that the industry is doing with BDMI support. And we completely welcome your recommendation to the government that actually we need to develop India-specific guidelines for monitoring antibiotics, because India is, as you mentioned, a tropical country. It has its own lab needs, it has its own challenges. And that is something that RAMP is very keen to work with you, as well as the government and Department of Industry, as well as Environment Ministry, to develop a working group to have a transparent system in place so that we can develop some broad guidelines that are India specific, to make the business case to the stakeholders to have monitoring guidelines, to develop specific guidelines that deal with monitoring of antibiotics, which are different to other pharmaceutical products, and also develop the capabilities, between the industry, but then also the lab capabilities of the state pollution control boards and regulators, so that we can actually implement something that is achievable and is a win-win for both industry and the environment.
Yeah, so, sure. It's a good suggestion. I think from BDMA side, we are willing to join with whether RAMP or NIPER or any other technical body to see that some of these issues are addressed and come to a practicable solutions. It would be a very good suggestion. We will be willing. We will be willing.
So we will follow up with you, sir, on this. Sure. I think we have some more questions. Nitin, who's next?
Yeah, so Mr. Vasudeva Murthy is next. Mr. Murthy, if you can unmute yourself and please ask a question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mine is pretty simple as such. What I was going through the presentation of Siddharth Prakash. In one of his presentation, he has actually mentioned on the harmonized criteria and proposed certification systems. Can you try to just elaborate a bit on that? What is the industry to look at, and how do they try to verify, to see to it, and then get certified to them? And what exactly is this certification systems, or what is these criteria that is over there? Could you just try to highlight a bit on that? That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so basically, right now, I think the only globally accepted norm for monitoring antibiotics is what the Amr Industry Alliance, which has come up with their guidelines and standard. And that standard basically looks at a set of recommendations for making sure that inside the factory things are sustainable, clean, green, and so that you minimize the waste going out. Secondly, they have something called a mass balance calculation, and we have experts here who will be talking about that in more detail. And that is basically a calculation that tries to look at the predicted no effect calculation, so that we can see how we can minimize the outflow of the waste into the environment. And that's what is happening right now. But what RAMP is trying to do is to take that as a starting point and look at basically, also looking at the challenge of water sampling and other aspects of it. So we're trying to look at how we take this as a starting point, but then when we go into a factory and take water samples, how do we do that? What are the results coming out? What is the best way to analyze that, share the data, and then from that analysis, see what is the level of pollution, what is the level of compliance, and then also work with the global procurement systems, which is the governments and the companies, so that we can arrive at a consensus for a harmonized framework. And that is really what RAMP brings to the table, and then make that acceptable globally, and then work with the stakeholders like BDMA to ensure that it is workable, achievable, and practical for countries like India to implement. And Nitin, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so I think, so like Siddharth mentioned, there is something known as the Amr Industry Alliance, which is a group of 100+ companies and bodies from pharmaceutical industry, science organizations, R&D, as well as healthcare facilities. And they have come up with, in 2018, they came up with a guideline document for suggesting what should be the discharge concentration of antibiotics in the effluent, in any effluent coming out of the manufacturing unit. And this effluent standard was proposed as a guideline to industries across the globe and not specific to India. And then in 2020, the Central Pollution Control Board came up with a draft guideline, which was based on the AMR industry standards, where they had proposed monitoring of antibiotics in the discharges from the manufacturing units. But that draft guideline has not been enforced so far. It's not been converted into law. Then most recently, about a month ago, Amr Industry Alliance, with the help of British Standard Institute, BSI, has released a standard document for which has converted the guidelines into a standard, which can be adopted by antibiotic manufacturers and API manufacturers for adopting responsible antibiotic manufacturing practices, where they talk about what are the discharge standards, as well as like what approaches that can be followed, which are recommended by the Global Alliance of AMR Industry Alliance. And what RAMP is trying to do is, because there are a lot of unanswered questions around AMR Industry Alliance standards, because these are the big pharma companies and the larger companies which have been working on this, but that doesn't address the grassroots challenges of some of the smaller players, and also the understanding is slightly different when you talk to different people. So what RAMP is trying to do is basically create a platform and create that enabling environment by organizing events like these, by organizing, creating the infrastructure to help propagate the idea of AMR from manufacturing. And so there is one more presentation after this where we talk about the Center of Excellence on AMR from manufacturing.
And if there are companies here who are not members of the AMR Industry Alliance and would wish to learn more about it, or would like to participate in factory audits and look at third-party verifications to see where they are on their sustainability curve, they can contact RAM and also Manjeet from the AMR Industry Alliance, and we can work with you to support you to build your capacity to do this. So with that, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, so Pranav Kumar, you have a couple of questions. Do you want to come online? I can spotlight you if you want to ask a question. Can you please turn on your video so that I can spotlight you?
Yeah, thanks. Actually, right now I'm mobile right now, so I'll just ask the question like any new technologies which are available in India which can treat this antibiotic residues in the ETP. So, is there any new technology which are available, or any consultant who can help us to treat this residues in our effluent treatment plant?
Right. So, so I will take that question. So there are new technologies like Mr. Reddy was also talking about. There are technologies which help in reducing the discharge of antibiotics or removal of antibiotics in the effluent treatment plant process. So there are advanced oxidation technologies, which again fall into different categories. There are zero liquid discharge technologies which take care of high TDS and low TDS water. And then, of course, there is ultimately zero liquid discharge, where you're not discharging anything into the environment. So there are different technologies, and in fact, one of the proposals or one of the initiatives that we're currently working on is setting up a center of excellence to answer exactly this question for people like you on how to find the right technologies, because the technology people have the same problem. Like, for example, I've spoken to at least 10 different technology companies in the last 6 months, and they don't know how to reach out to people like you, because most of these technologies are either being done by new scientists, or they are currently coming out of the research and development efforts across the world. Like, for example, I know companies in Netherlands, Germany, they've come up with technologies. There are even technologies available in India, which are both from monitoring as well as from a treatment perspective. So what we will do is we are actually putting together, along with like a global initiative, we are putting together a database of different technologies which are innovative and which can help in improving the efficacy of removal of antibiotic in the discharges, as well as improving the cost effectiveness of the ETPs and the zero liquid discharge plants. And so we'll share that database in a follow-up email with all the participants here.
Right. And a second question, like any interim controls are present to control the residue going into the ETP, and what are the good practices presently the organization is doing, different manufacturing industries are practicing. So if we can get those like examples, good examples, so that we can implement right now at our facility.
I think that's a perfect segue into Manjeet's presentation, because Centrion Pharmaceutical has been taking a leadership position in terms of championing some of these efforts. So I think Manjeet will be talking a lot about, and they're also part of the Amr Industry Alliance and RAM. So I think Manjeet's presentation will really give you a lot of inputs on this question. So if you can wait for 5 more minutes, we can have Manjeet present his presentation, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of good inputs from that.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank
Siddharth,
you.
and thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pranav.
Any more
Okay.
questions?
Murli Krishna, you had one question. Do you want to ask your question, please? Murli Krishna?
Nitin, it's Ravi Kiran. I mean, I have one question.
Please go ahead, Mr. Ravi.
Yeah. I mean, some early phase antibiotics, which are new to antibiotics, I mean, new antibiotics we are discovering. At the time, how do you define the limit for newly developed antibiotics? These early phase molecules.
Yeah, great question. Manjeet, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, I would like to take that. It's really a very good question. And see, the innovators, first of all, innovators do studies. Secondly, there are certain societies. Like in Europe, a society is known as JUCAST. It is European Society for Antibiotic Sustainability Testing. So they define those limits based on their procedure. Okay, that's one. And secondly, in case there are certain antibiotics which are old, they won't have any PNAC value. So Industry Alliance has set up a default value based on certain statistical calculations, and this value is 0.03 ppb. Yeah. And if you want to learn more, go to Google JUCAST, and you will learn about how these values are set. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Manjeet. Any more questions? Okay, I don't see any more hands raised up. So Manjeet, I think this is a good indication for you to get started. So can you please share your screen and get started with the presentation? Thank you.
So
And,
Manjeet,
I'll just make a quick announcement. Anybody who has questions, please put it in the chat window, and we'll definitely bring you online to ask your questions.
So our next speaker is Manjeet Singh, Associate Director, Corporate Sustainability, Centrion Pharmaceuticals. He will be showcasing Centrion's case for AMR-free supply chains and looking at how they have achieved very high levels of sustainability globally and in India. Welcome, Manjeet.
Yeah, thank you, Siddharth, and thanks, Nitin, and also a very good discussions till now. And also I saw a lot of interest coming from audience who are right now in the webinar. So what I'll do, I'll take you through a case study, how Centrion has achieved AMR-free supply chain. Let me give you a bit of a brief about my organization. Centrion Pharmaceutical is about 150-year-old organization, and we are headquartered at Netherlands. And we produce penicillin-based antibiotics, largely statins and antifungal APIs. And we have a very little portfolio of FDF, and largely we are API producing company, and we are business to business company. So we won't go to, let us say, patient, okay, and user. So that's a bit of introduction to my company. So I now immediately move how we achieve this AMR-free supply chain. When I say supply chain, that means our own manufacturing network, as well as our supplier CMOs. So these are about 6-7 slides. I will taking you through. We'll first talk about strategy, which is very important part. Then key drivers, what are the challenges we faced, and our journey a bit, giving you a over the years how we achieved it, and certain processes at Sentient and PNAC compliance status, as well as I'll share with you technologies which we use at one of our facility in India, Tuansa, which is compliant at the end of pipeline, which is usually very strict, I would say specification, or very strict to achieve, tough to achieve. Okay, this is about our strategy. So why I am showing this strategy, the reason being, if you have really a focus, then it is very, very helpful to achieve that particular goal. So we have 3 pillars in our strategy: minimizing environment impact, improving human health and social impact, and ensuring an AMR-free supply chain. So I immediately go to the 3rd pillar, ensuring AMR-free supply chain, and would be talking about that only. So we said 3 things. First, sites and supplier compliant with Amr Industry Alliance Common Manufacturing Framework. This will be shortly now substituted by Amr Industry Alliance standard, which has been released on in the end of May. Sites and suppliers compliant with predicted no effect concentration PNEX, which we talked about, and the further. We said we will be compliant in 2021, point number 2. And the 3rd point is about support adaptation of proposed industry line standard in antibiotic manufacturing and procurement. Yeah, so these are our 3 KPIs goals on AMR. What is driving industry to, let us say, be AMR free? And there has been background given by Dr. Shashiwala Singh and also Siddhartha about AMR. So I will not go into that. So there has been a lot of developments happening around the globe. There are a couple of proposed legislation, couple of initiatives by various governments. So these are really driving. For example, in Europe, there is proposed European Pharma Strategy Dialogue, which is also focusing on environmental criteria, sourcing of either antibiotic or APIs, and there is also discussion on AMR. Procurement in environment, it's a similar what I talked about. That is certain countries, for example, Norway, UK, and Netherlands is very, I would say, shortly also adopting this. There would be procurement criteria on environment, and this will include AMR. The resolution in UNGA in 2016 to combat AMR, Davos Declaration on AMR, and draft standard Nathan talked about, and recent NGD order to CPCB to include AMR Industry Alliance limits based on a litigation which happened between the industry and a civil society over there. And you can Google about this Buddy case very well. China gone ahead with Sky Blue and biosafety. Biosafety includes on certain legislation over AMR, and WHO going ahead including environment aspect into GMP. It was in fact there, if you look at, but usually it was not focused, but now it also would include AMR. I believe it is progressing very well. And our customer, we look at our customer, they really audit us for AMR and also do PSCI audit, which is also focusing somewhat on AMR aspect. And Sentient for us, it is sustainable manufacturing, very important. So that's why we adopted, let us say, sustainable manufacturing, and we started very well somewhere in 2014. So I'm talked about What are those key drivers globally, nationally, and very particular to Segriant? Yeah. Now moving to what are those key challenges we had. It was not an easy journey. Before I go ahead on this slide, so I would also like to apprise all of you that our company is PNAC compliant last year, December 2021. So the next story would be rolling out. How did we achieve it? Okay. So we had challenge. We had no idea. When we talk about challenge, it is about AMR. We have in the beginning with not very good idea about what is scientific, about a scientific understanding and knowledge of AMR. Second challenge was no standard and method for risk assessment and measurement. Third one is technical training to our people and also skill to develop solution and application to combat AMR. And the fourth one is very complex wastewater matrix, not easy to analyze, and very stringent PNAC values. PNAC value is, certain PNAC values are even below ppb. For example, amoxy, ampicillin, it is 0.25. Lab testing capabilities and cost, and those are also a big challenge. As long as my understanding is there, India doesn't have even a single lab which can test the PNAC to their up to their limits and cost, and it deploys a very expensive equipment like HPLC, MSMS. Then you need to have very competent manpower and operating cost. The last one is implementation at suppliers. So it's very difficult to go to suppliers and tell them a major PNAC pack. Yeah, so it was also a challenge to overcome. So these are a couple of challenges. I hope most of you must be facing this because it is a common to industry. The next slide is how we achieved it and what was the duration. We took more or less, I would say about 6 years, because when we started in 2016 and we achieved in 2021. And this slide describes about our journey. So we made a commitment that we would like to combat AMR. So we signed UNGA industry roadmap, and we also signed Davos Declaration in 2016 in the first companies who said they would like to combat AMR. And then we joined industry initiative. We joined PSCI, Amr Industry Alliance, Medicine for Europe, and on-ramp, we are partner. These are excellent platforms to learn, to find solution, to mutual sharing of best practices, understanding what is happened. So we gained tremendous know-how from here, knowledge from here. And what we did, we gained a high level of confidence that we would be able to clean our supply chain. So then we said, okay, we will also support industry to understand AMR, also to do advocacy to combat. So we promote, advocate responsible manufacturing, combating AMR, we share best practices across supply chain. On DCAT, we do AMR events. We are also representing to regulators. So we do support wherever, either even to our customer and some of suppliers, we do that. Yeah. Thereafter, in 2018 to 2020, so we embarked upon a journey to find a solution and its implementation. In 2019, when I was attending Amr Industry Alliance meeting in New Jersey at J&J headquarters, so we made a commitment. Companies were discussing when member companies will become CAAM as well as PNAC compliant. So we made a commitment by 2021, we will be compliant. So we continued our assessment based on common antibiotic manufacturing framework and also PNAC assessment. It was in reality very tough journey. So it was very difficult to start develop analytical method, but We invested in resources and we developed a very precise analytical method. So where it can also detect antibiotics in the wastewater up to ppb level. And then we also worked upon a solution, which can decompose the antibiotics. So we also developed a biocatalyst to degrade the residual antibiotics. And then we developed procedures, SOPs, and sampling method and testing frequency, which I will talk later. 2019 to 2021, we have two phases. In the first phase, in 2019, our SSP, semi-synthetic penicillin antibiotics, became compliant to P9. So wastewater was having residual antibiotics, which were less than P9. So we declared in October 2019, we had certain challenge in our cephalosporin portfolio, and we invested in order to decompose those antibiotics. And we also eventually gained our compliance to PNEC last year, December 2021. And then we declared that we are having a supply chain which is PNEC compliant, AMR3. But in addition to this, we have a couple of CMOs who are producing antibiotics for us. And we did their assessment. We worked very closely with them for mass balance, even also for analysis of or testing of their wastewater. And those, our CMOs, are also PNEC compliant. So that makes our full supply chain PNEC compliant. And this year, we have also released a white paper. You can Google and find that. It gives a lot of description. And also, let us say, in campaign on social media. Yeah. And to see what we do, you can also follow Syntrient on social media and find our postings over there. Okay. What are those processes in place in order to make sure that we continuously prevent AMR? So we developed a couple of processes. First of all, we have dedicated global and local technical teams which take care of and monitor PNEC part. Then we have mandatory sustainability requirements. And it's a blueprint and which talks about those requirements as well as awareness campaigns. And we do assessment of our site against, as I talked about, CAMR. Then we also had validated analytical method to measure antibiotics. And we do take those samples monthly. And we do test those samples every quarter. And we share our results within our facility. And wherever needed, we also take, let us say, corrective preventive actions. Yeah, but fortunately, starting from 2019 till now, we are, I would say, our efforts have yielded results. We are PNEC compliant. We have a global international standard operating procedure to monitor wastewater treatment plant for PNEC. And PNEC is also part of our wastewater releasing or testing specification. We do periodical assessment all waste streams, either solid or liquid, and being treated inside or being sent outside to make sure that that is not contributing to AMR, and it is, let us say, particularly liquid one not entering into environment. Yeah. And we also assess our supply chain. As I said, we do AMR survey once in 2 years. And we also do CAMF and PNEC monitoring at our suppliers, particularly CMOs. And we do get validated result from them every year based on the frequency fixed with every CMO. Yeah. So this is a slide which shows PNEC compliance status of all our sites. Yeah. And certain even intermediate that do not have any PNEC value, but we set up our own internal values. We also monitor PNEC, let us say, monitor our intermediate sites as well. We have a new acquisition in India, so where it is under assessment, and thereafter we are working on it, and we would also like to see that in the end of this year, the site is also compliant. A bit of now you must be wondering, how do you do this and what kind of technology you are being used. As I said, once a site is meeting PNEC at the end of pipeline. When I say at the end of pipeline, where the water flows out of wastewater treatment plant. So this is quite tough, and usually due to very stringent specifications or limits of residual antibiotics. So we apply certain set of technology, which I'm sharing here. First, we make a distinction between high TDS, low TDS, and it goes for primary treatment. We have mechanical vapor recompression over there. Then we have thin film dryer. And then it follows secondary treatment, where we have biological treatment units. And thereafter it goes to the tertiary treatment. We have ultrafiltration, reverse osmosis. Yeah. At the end of reverse osmosis, when it flows out of our wastewater treatment plant, we check PNEC compliance. Samples are picked up there from there. And the water, treated water, goes for recycle. And we do recycle to our cooling towers and as well as for horticulture. Yeah. And this site and also our other sites has been audited by Industry Alliance member companies in 2019 and this year as per PSEI, and also very specifically for AMR. The site has passed this audit quite successfully. And this is a small picture indicating, showing our waste management driven by our proud and dedicated team. Yeah. So that's all from my side. Yeah, thank you very much. Now I will stop sharing, and if there are any questions, I will love to take those questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Manjeet. So there are a few questions that people have asked. So maybe I'll bring, so people, if you can just raise your hands, I'll put you on spotlight and then you can ask a question. And when asking the question, please try to keep your video on. It helps put a face to the name.
I think we have one from Samsung.
Hi. Hello. Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is Venkat. I have two questions. Hello.
Yes, Venkat. You are on spotlight. Please ask a question.
Yes. We have ZLDS and we are treating them. Our permit is going for the cooling tower and reusing, and their PNEC compliance. And one more part is solid waste. Solid waste, some part we are sending for the cement companies for the co-processing, and some part is for the landfilling. Actually, here for landfilling purpose, can we comply this PNEC?
No, solid PNEC doesn't apply to the solid now, right now. And the condition from Amr Industry Alliance, because that is the only standard existing in this world today, it should be, if it is going for landfilling, it should go to leach-proof landfilling site. And preferably, it should go to a government authorized site. If you do that, you are complying with standard. Yeah.
If it is complete co-processing, means it's complying complete to the PNEC. Co-processing the cement companies.
It is for co-processing. When it goes to cement company, it is burning. It doesn't come in contact with, let us say, environment. It doesn't go to soil. It doesn't go to water. Then it is also perfectly fine. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
Hi, Manjeet. Tapas here.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I want you mentioned that your 5-6 sites that mixing zone. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
That it is a discharge point. You are asking. You are mentioning that.
It is. See, the PNEC definition of PNEC is the concentration of an antibiotic when it mixes in a water body, either in ocean or it mixes in a river, or it is mixing in a lake. So there are dilution factors based on flow. That is the way of calculating PEC. Okay. So that is effective concentration. So that's why we have specifically written in the mixing zone. Okay. And I talked about our one of the facility, which is compliant end of the pipeline, which I also showed the technology part. Yeah.
That means you have collected the sample at the mixing zone and analyzed that.
No need to pick up a sample from mixing zone. There is a criteria and procedure given by Amr Industry Alliance.
Okay.
And also other studies how to calculate that. You can go to PSCI website and you can download PSCI, PNEC calculator or PEC calculator, and that will describe how to make a calculation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Samson, can you please ask a question?
Yeah, great to see you, Samson.
Hi, Manjeet. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So this is a question on behalf of a larger audience. Okay. So with respect to pharma API units, most of the units they're gone for SIWI facilities. As we have rightly clarified just a minute back, if it is not going to be discharged to your water body, then this PNEC, whatever it is, it's not a question at all. It is not applicable as long as it is not discharged into your water body. Having said that, many companies are literally worried, oh, I need to make a desktop analysis or a quantitative measurement, and which stage I have to do what. They are totally confused. I know PSCA has tried to clarify this particular subject in different fashion, but still, if you can give it in few bullets, many of the API industries will be benefited, whether it is applicable, and if we need to do desktop analysis or quantitative, which stage? That's my question.
Can you repeat it? I could not get you fully. I would appreciate if you can rephrase your question.
No, if we are a zero liquid discharge facility,
correct,
still should we go for desktop analysis or a detailed quantitative mass balance we should have? If so, which stage we should go for a simple desktop analysis or a quantitative analysis, taking samples and getting it analyzed? So which study at which stage?
Okay, if it is zero liquid discharge has two definitions in India still. I know the most prevalent one is closed loop, when you use entire water into either boiler or use into cooling tower or somewhere else. It doesn't come in contact with the environment. When I say environment, water or soil, okay? If that is the case, in my view, then I think doing a mass balance should be sufficient, but still a quantitative analysis is good to do, because when you do mass balance, you only know what is the outflow from the plant to the wastewater plant, okay? So it is difficult to calculate what is the efficiency of antibiotic removal, so no? So that's a bit, it should be done at the end point, but I think it is also well established now, if it is a zero liquid discharge, doesn't go to environment, then I think mass balance should be sufficient, you can claim it. Yeah, but I will still recommend for industry to do a mass balance, even for ZLD, and take sample from the endpoint and analyze it, and you see your efficiency. That will precisely give you where do you stand, let us say from PNEC point of view. Yeah.
Fine. So you mean to say that still we can go for this desktop analysis to show, to say, to make it as a manifestation. Yes, we take these kind of measures to validate that we can have it.
Absolutely.
Not per se ZLD, it is required. Okay.
Yeah. So the point is because now in Amr Industry Alliance standard, which has released in May, and that talks about mass balance, doesn't talk about analytical method, but even in mass balance, so there is one point showing efficacy, you know, it's important if you can do analysis, if it is not precisely very quantitative, like let us say HPLC, MSMS, by other means demonstrate it is below certain, let us say ppb, and still establishes that it meets PNAC, yeah.
Fine, thanks for the
I hope I could answer your question.
To a greater extent, yes.
No, you have any doubt, can come again, please. No worries.
Yeah, we can catch up separately. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Yeah.
Manjeet, next question is from Pankaj Singh. Pankaj, if you can just tell us which institute or which organization you're from and ask the question.
Yeah, hi, good evening all. I am from CIPLA, and my question to Manjeet sir is how you have driven this AMR project for your company. Have you hired some consultant or you have done in-house this project?
No, not at all. We didn't hire any consultant. So we started, as I said, in our journey, we were part of PSCI, Amr Industry Alliance, Medicine for Europe, and REM. So precisely, you can see these three platforms, Industry Alliance, PSCI, REM. They are very good platform to learn about how to run this project inside your organization. We had no consultant. We managed with our in-house team. However, for doing analysis, we have agreement with the external laboratory in Europe where we sent the sample. Yeah.
Sir, one more question. We have a lot of suppliers who are supplying antibiotics to CIPLA, but they are small suppliers. So we have done the desktop review for them, and based on the desktop review, we have chosen some suppliers who are critical based on our criteria of AMR. But the kind of response which we are getting from them is very, we can say very slow, and they are not willing to spend money on this project because they are saying why we should spend when we are complying all the governmental norms which are as per the State Pollution Control Board. So how to how to encourage those suppliers to follow this AMR concept, sir?
A very good question, Pankaj Singh. Very good question. I think largely big organizations, either multinational or Indian, they face to this dilemma. In my view, a close interaction, you can devise a AMR survey and then see what is outcome. Even whatever mass balance study you have done, share mass studies with them, okay, and also share with them why it is essential, and also share with them what are those techniques which can be used. For example, if it is a formulation unit, and we find from where maximum of antibiotics outflow, okay, so there are deactivation, simple deactivation studies can be done in-house, can be validated, and those can be used. Or in case you find those studies difficult, but there are also techniques like processes like incineration, those can also be used. There are ways and means to do it. I think it's very, first of all, important to engage suppliers by having very close relationship, good relationship, and convince them to do that. Yeah. There are solutions in my view. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, Mr. Batterjee, Mr. Batterjee, if you can ask a question. Okay, I think he's okay.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Mr. Manjeet. Nice seeing you and getting you again. I have just a follow-up question from what Samson has asked. Because we do face this challenge in convincing our suppliers who are basically a zero liquid discharge, right? To convince them even to do a mass balance when they are saying that they are purely zero liquid discharge, wherein there is even not a scope of the treated water being used in gardening or horticulture. So that the debate comes that any which ways, my upstream processing, which is for high TDS, we remove solids, we separate out solids, and my downstream processing, including biological treatment, the solid waste which gets separated is also treated securely, whether it goes for secure landfilling or it will go for an incineration. So in that case, and then whatever water is there, it's purely used entirely inside the utilities. I mean, that needs to be checked, like how efficiently, because during, will it be, completely utilized for utilities like boilers, if they have very good tertiary treatment, and another we bank upon is cooling tower. So in that case, still, how to convince them, like, you need to do mass balance as well as analytical method, because they say that putting on paper my water balance and my entire wastewater treatment, this is how it is. Nothing is going into the environment. That little challenge comes. So what should be the convincing factor per se?
No, that's really a tough situation. And we also had a debate, argumentation on that. I can give my the arguments on that. What are those arguments? A, we talked to many, even manufacturer, is it really possible 100% to have? I think once in a while, when there is a breakdown and certain issues happen and it is difficult to stop production. So I think that there are chances of not being 100% always. A, B, there are studies which say when it goes to, let us say, water goes to cooling tower, and if it is not, let us say, it goes to cooling towers and increases PNAC value, so there is also chances of getting resistant bacteria, but that's very remote. It's not well claimed on that. So these are certain arguments which really do ask to do a PNAC check at the, let us say, end of the pipeline for GLT. Yeah, their argument is very, I would say, very solid when they said that, let us say, it doesn't go into environment. That is, I would say, very solid argument, which has been bought by many, conflicted by few. But to be on safer side, it is good to have mass balance. There will be, we know at least what is the worst case scenario or the best case scenario. It's good for that. Yeah. Yeah. It is still in a conflict zone.
Yeah,
I think we'll take.
I understand.
Resolve it. Yeah.
I agree to a point, like if treated water used for gardening, and if there is no analysis or no evaluation done, there we will need to ensure that, that at least the treated, that the plant is like biological treatment process as well as upstream process is taking care. And that's where we have argument. But this piece, the other piece, the first part which I mentioned, it sometimes becomes a little challenge to convince and get it done. But Manjeet, thanks for your insights. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Reddy, and then maybe we can have Ashish, and then we can move to the next presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Manjeet.
Good afternoon, Reddy sir. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Actually, I have seen the techniques which you have followed. It is basically, if you see, it's basically a ZLD system where you are first trying to remove the solids and then the condensate taking for ultrafiltration and RO.
Yeah.
In fact, I had the same question what Mr. Bhattacharya has raised, was that whether that permeate is meeting standards of PNAC value. And secondly, if I'm using in cooling tower or somewhere else, whether there can be a concentration of antibiotic values crossing the PNAC levels, and of course, our own experience is that most of the plants where they have their own captive power plants, we are able to recycle recovered water 100%, because in the power plant also a lot of water is used in the cooling cycle. Only where you don't have a captive power plant, sometimes there's a possibility that you have some excess recovered water, which you may have to use it for gardening and other things. But however, if really the permeate is meeting the PNAC levels, definitely then I think meeting the criteria for AMR, I think, should not be a difficult thing, because most of them are already in the process of implementing the ZLD system.
Yeah, absolutely. If you talk about our plant, whatever, let us say, wastewater which goes for recycling, see our method of analysis, that particular method has a limit of detection of 0.1 ppb, which is lower than 0.25 ppb, which is PNAC value for amoxicillin or ampicillin. Just citing an example, okay? So we didn't even detect.
Correct.
There's not a noise. So this, you are right when you said the whatever system we have put in, it is really, it is equivalent to ZLD in my view, even better than ZLD. So that way, because we have a very state of the art, very modern treatment plant. Yeah, I agree with you. And second point, which Kumar also brought up, you also brought up on ZLD, couple of points to, let us say, prevent an argument risk as well. For example, in rainy season, the evaporation level is not usually very high. So there is a possibility there could be residual water. Okay, there's chances of breakdown. There are other chances, right? In order to address that, it is good for industry not to do regular, probably once, twice, or thrice in a year, to put a evidence in their hand that this is what situation is, and then you know the risk. Okay, so that's my suggestion for ZLD. I won't emphasize, it's still my personal view, not as a Amr Industry Alliance or PSCI representative. It's good to have that. Yeah.
Or one more thing, I just wanted to know whether you have tried, like, anyway, this AMR standards are not applicable for intermediate, but the final product. Suppose at the final stage where, let us say, we have a washing or a solvent extraction or something. Suppose the first water cut, instead of mixing with the mass total effluents, I just isolate the first cut and then do some advanced oxidation, either ozone or penton reagent or something else. Only that small portion, I reduce any antibiotic levels to low level and then go through your normal ZLD system. Maybe that could help you.
I completely agree with you. I think very solid, rational, scientific point you brought up. And many companies, what they do, they focus on that particular, when they call it high TDS, mother liquors, basically. And they also provide certain high pH, low pH kind of treatment, because they do conduct certain treatability study in their.
Yeah, particularly for penton, it has to be low pH.
Yeah.
Then only it will be effective. Or alternatively, we don't know whether we can extract solvent, and that solvent, you take it for incineration.
Yeah, that's also, for example, the distillation column bottoms.
Yes,
there are again two way of doing. Because solvent when distilled out doesn't contain anything, bottoms do contain. So again, it is matter of scrutinize if company really want to make an effort, look at if there is still the active moiety there at such an high temperature, that is to establish and say it doesn't exist. If it exists, either go for deactivation or it is a small amount, go for incineration. That is the way.
Yeah.
Great
question, Mr. Reddy. But in the interest of time, can we just move forward?
I'm finished.
Sorry.
The last two questions, Dr. Soumya Mukherjee and Ashish Dev, could you ask them together and Manjeet can take them?
Yeah.
Dr. Soumya.
Okay. One of the primary issues everyone is talking about is monitoring, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you are saying monitoring any of the processes, you set up processes, you need to monitor the process in order to make sure the process is going right.
Correct.
As it seems to me that the process monitoring in terms of antibiotics with the standard methodologies are very, very expensive. And so it is not being monitored. I mean, are you aware of methods where where monitoring can be carried out with reasonable ease and reasonably inexpensively, so that small, medium scale as well as large scale manufacturers can suitably do the monitoring and control the processes?
Can we take one more question from Ashish Dev quickly, and then we'll go to the next presenter.
Yeah, I'm Ashish from Techna Chennai. My question is like, what are the common certifications or reporting, particularly in this pharma perspective, Like, for example, for chemicals, ISCC, International Sustainability Carbon Certification, a lot of things are there. And what is more interesting in the pharma? And last, you discussed about the desktop analysis, actual testing and analysis. So the laboratory has to be approved, or is there any requirement for that particular aspect? Thank you.
Let me go one by one. And Mr. Mukherjee, do you come from industry?
No, I'm from academia.
Yeah, no, that's why I want to know, because, okay, for that, the most economical method is doing mass balance, which is largely very, very helpful for formulation units. And largely, in my view, formulation units has very bright opportunities to meet PNAC, because their loss, which happens, physical loss is very less, and it is very tangible loss. Very little is intangible. That's one way. First thing, that's what Amr Industry Alliance is promoting, only doing, let us say, mass balance. Okay, so it doesn't involve money, it involves simple calculations and do that a certain format, and certain guidelines has to follow. That's one way of doing. Secondly, as long as analysis is concerned, there are certain methods which are little expensive, which can give you a result qualitative less than or more than, let us say, 50 ppb or 20 ppb, like Delbo test, and there are other tests. There are similar tests, they are existing. Those kits are available, can be used, and can be demonstrated very well. Okay, then calculation can be done based on the water inflow from the plant, what it would be the concentration eventually. Okay, if it is go to river, apply those factors, go to ocean, apply those factors. That's very I would say economically feasible way of doing. Yeah, but other methods are very expensive, I do agree. And this is what is happening. The Center of Excellence, as talked about by Nitin and Siddhartha, this is what we're going to do here. And PSCI is also in alliance with the RAM. We are also developing certain labs, those skill sets within Hyderabad region for testing, so that it becomes very economic. Even smaller industries can also go and get it tested. Yeah, I hope I could answer your question. Yeah. Okay, Ashish, coming to your question, can you come again, please?
Okay, I was asking about the certifications and reporting, particularly in this pharma sector. When we talk about chemicals, there are like ISCC, International Sustainability Carbon Certification. So what is, I mean, we know that there are a lot of standards, there are a lot of reporting. Which is the most relevant, or which is more interesting when it is inside India and an export? Yeah.
Okay, I could not understand fully, but let me split into two portions. Part A, you talked about sustainability standard. When we talk about sustainability standard, I think a globally acknowledged standard is GRI, IRCC. These are two standards for reporting. Now, coming to antimicrobial, and that is also certification as well. So when you report as per and to do an external verification of those sustainability reports or reports, and that's a kind of certification. You claim that your report is prepared, or whatever, like a CO2 emission reduction, water reduction, waste reduction, other initiatives, they are in line with that standard. That's a globally acknowledged standard. Now, coming to AMR certification, there's no certification do exist now. AMR Industry Alliance is developing a certification scheme, and by the end of this year, that scheme will be released. Yeah, and fortunately, I'm also the member of that certification developing team. It is progressing very well. Companies, then antibiotic companies have two things: A, the standard to follow; B, the certification to showcase to their customer, other stakeholder, they are, let us say, following AMR standard, and they are meeting PNAC, or they are manufacturing sustainably by preventing AMR. I hope I could answer your question.
Yeah.
Just wait, certification scheme would be out by the end of this year. It's very well progressing. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that very rich discussion and presentation, Manjeet. I think it is very clear that there is a lot of interest in the pharmaceutical industry to solve this. So thanks a lot. So with that, maybe we can move to the next presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan Siddhartha, for this an opportunity, and really appreciate engagement from industry. I see a lot of interest. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll now have next presenter, Nitin Varma, who is the technical advisor to the Responsible Antibiotic Manufacturing Platform. And responding to the earlier speakers, the need for capacity building, working with the NIPER, and what Mr. Yuvraj also mentioned, building the capacity of the SMEs. We would like to propose a RAMP AMR Center of Excellence for sustainable antibiotic manufacturing in India. And this is how we are proposing to do it. And we really look forward to interaction, contributions, and input so that we can tailor make it to meet your challenges and needs on the ground. So over to Nitin.
Can you see my presentation? Actually, okay, perfect. Yeah. Great. So like Siddharth mentioned, I'll be talking about the initiative where we're trying to set up a center of excellence. So if people don't know what a center of excellence is, maybe I can give a quick introduction. So typically, the idea of a center of excellence emerged about in the dawn of industrialization, where in an industry, if you wanted to achieve a new project, which was not run-of-the-mill project, you would typically bring in 2 or 3 top leaders or top people in the industry to set up a committee or a joint effort to set up the initiative and take that initiative forward. So this has been widely adopted in manufacturing of automobiles, even pharmaceuticals, right? So the idea of a RAMP center or AMR center of excellence is basically to take forward the initiative on manufacturing and AMR together to a larger extent, so that more and more people and more industries can benefit from that. Right. And as we kind of got the hint earlier today that there are a lot of questions and there are a lot of different types of questions, but probably there are a lot even more number of answers, right? And it becomes really, really challenging for a stakeholder to understand how to address these questions and what are the right answers. And so to address that, we feel that setting up a center of excellence, in addition to all the existing initiatives that have been taken up by the industry through Amr Industry Alliance, RAMP, and local efforts by BDMAI, local efforts by individual industries, and also like following the most advanced wastewater treatment technologies and so on and so forth. But there are still a lot of gaps in terms of understanding and training. And so the idea of the center of excellence that we are trying to set up is to answer 3 big questions, or to help industry with 3 big elements of the project. So the first is to provide a multi-stakeholder platform, which would help in spreading the awareness by conducting workshops like the one we are doing today, so that more and more people in the industry are better aware and better equipped to understand what are the challenges on AMR, and then they can contribute to the further development of the industry. And the second one is to help the industries, to help them build capacity. So when, like for example, I was talking to a EHS head of a large global multinational, Indian multinational company. They have about 250 EHS managers, and the typical attrition rate in that team is about 10%. So on average, they are recruiting about 25 new people on a yearly basis in the EHS team. Forget discounting the fact that they are growing organically as well. So now training these 25 new people on EHS, on AMR can be a challenge. So what we propose in the Center of Excellence is that the Center of Excellence can be a training institute or training organization where training on AMR can be provided to all the EHS professionals, as well as professionals from other sectors. So from procurement. So for example, a hospital administrator who's responsible for procurement of antibiotics, how can he or she be aware of what are the latest procurement norms in India and globally on the best practices for AMR protection? And then the third is to support with the creation of infrastructure to answer a few key questions. So questions asked by Professor Mukherjee, whether there are sufficient technologies available for monitoring antibiotics. What is the cost of monitoring? Are there laboratories? Are there consultants available who can take care of, who can support me with designing my AMR strategy, right? So those are the type of questions and the infrastructure that needs to be addressed. And so our proposal is that the Center of Excellence on AMR can take the leadership, and then companies from India and beyond can become partners of the Center of Excellence to take this initiative forward. So in the next few slides, I'll just detail some of these initiatives and how we are trying to think about setting up the Center of Excellence and what is the support that we want from you. So very honestly, the support that we want from you is collaboration. Because as we have seen, the more we collaborate through the experience of AMR Industry Alliance, BDMAI, and this workshop also, everybody has a different perspective and everybody has a different requirement. So specifically for the Center of Excellence, what we want is we want your commitment to get your EHS staff, your colleagues to be trained on AMR so that they can also contribute to the growth of the sector. Then we heard a lot about technologies for monitoring. We heard a lot about laboratory capacities, and setting up these laboratories is expensive. So as part of the Center of Excellence, we plan to set up a laboratory where water samples can be set up. So this is a joint initiative that we are doing with PSCI. So once this laboratory is set up, most likely in Hyderabad, you should send your samples to this laboratory instead of sending it to other laboratories. Or trying to set it up on your own. You could make use of the laboratory which is going to be set up as part of the Center of Excellence to monitor for antibiotics, and which would be done at a no profit, no loss kind of initiative, right? Then you should open up your factories to get experts from the Center of Excellence to come in and help you do these mass balance calculations, do these audits, to help you get prepared for the changing times and to meet the procurement norms. For example, GMP is including environmental criteria. For your buyers might be including AMR industry criteria or other criteria which is available in the market. How do you get prepared? So you would need access to experts, and that is what the Center of Excellence could provide you, right? And of course, I mean, because we are trying to set up the Center of Excellence as a collaborative initiative, if you would like to partner with RAMP and PSCI and other agencies in setting up the Center of Excellence, we would love to have co-funding from you to set up the Center of Excellence. So what are the core services? So we think of Center of Excellence as like as a individual independent body, which would be providing core services to the pharmaceutical industry. So what are the services that the Center of Excellence can provide? So first of all, like I said, it will have a geographical scope focusing on India and the neighboring countries where antibiotics are being manufactured. The Center of Excellence is getting seed funding from the Swiss Development Corporation and hopefully one of the leading pharmaceutical companies in India. And broadly, the services are going to be categorized into three big domains. So one is academic. So we're partnering with institutes like NIPER, IICT, IIT Hyderabad, BITS Pilani, IIT Mumbai, to set up training, University of Hyderabad, to set up training and capacity building of different stakeholders in the antibiotic manufacturing industry. Then the second is to look at operational excellence, which includes testing, verification, and technology testbed for testing new technologies, new initiatives for both monitoring as well as treatment, and also reducing the cost for the treatment of antibiotic carrying wastewaters and other wastes. And then the final element would be to generate more awareness through webinars and workshops like these, and also through policy research and advocacy to the right people in the industry who can have an impact on how the antibiotic industry matures from here on. So I'll not bore you with the details, but broadly in the training, we'll have a lot of different sessions around what is the relationship of AMR and environment, what is the business case. So in more detail, so there is a lot of work that has happened by leaders like Centrient, Aurobindo Pharma, and the likes, who have already implemented. There are good research studies which are available, which can showcase like the business case of adopting good AMR compliance practices. Then what are the solutions? Like there were a lot of questions around treatment technologies, ZLD, what are the right treatment solutions? So we plan to have training sessions, which would be organized over a couple of days at the Center of Excellence to take care of the capacity building needs on treatment technologies and monitoring technologies. And similarly, there are a bunch of other courses that we are planning. Right. In terms of operational excellence, so every factory, if they have to become AMR compliance, they have to worry about how their factory is going to be testing for antibiotics, doing the mass balance calculations, and also going forward in future, there are going to be compliance requirements where your procurers, like for example, there was a good discussion around that my suppliers are not willing to open up their sites for verification. So if that happens, then how do you go and monitor their sites? How do you make sure that whatever they are claiming is actually meeting the requirements of your end customer? So the Center of Excellence would provide a laboratory facility, which would be useful for EHS professionals, pollution control board staff members, as well as procurers, so that they can send their samples for testing of water samples and other samples. And the laboratories are going to be sort of a shared services under the shared services model for the entire industry. And instead of setting up your own laboratories, you will be able to utilize the laboratories of the Center of Excellence. And then secondly, there is a lot of work that is happening in terms of new technologies, like Dr. Reddy talked about advanced oxidation. We learned about some technologies adopted by Centrion. But how do we know that these technologies are applicable to my unit, right? And those are the type of questions that the testbed would be able to address. And especially if there are new technologies that are coming up. So the testbed facility could, so you can think of the testbed facility as a facility which is linked to the Center of Excellence, but which is a real life operating plant. And you come in, actually a technology provider can come in and test their technologies and their new protocols or their new process for making sure that that it is able to solve the problem on the ground, right? So we would be partnering with companies like yours to ensure that there is a testbed facility and the technologies that are tested on the testbed facility are actually able to solve the problem, and there is a verification process followed before a vendor from a technology company can come and sell their technology to your particular unit. Then on the awareness and policy research, so we'll be organizing many more events like these where, so Tapas mentioned that there are about 3,000 EHS professionals and people. It's a very small industry, but still there are 3,000 people, and today we had about 150 people join, and there are many more people who can be trained, who can be made more aware, both from the industry as well as from other stakeholders like government, civil society, and academia. So the Center of Excellence would be organizing regular webinars and workshops to improve the awareness, and also working with industry bodies like BDMAI, PSCI to provide advocacy to government for coming up with new incentive schemes or new regulations, so that focusing only on the AMR element. I mean, these organizations are doing a lot of other things, but the Center of Excellence would be focusing on the AMR related regulations. So what would RAMP offer? So RAMP, as Siddharth mentioned in this presentation, we are a global platform for supporting responsible antibiotic manufacturing. We are a small team of 5-6 people from different sectors. So we have program managers, we have engineers like myself, we have business people who are basically trying to work and bring people together to basically figure out like what is the best foot forward as an industry that we can put forward to control spread of AMR from manufacturing. So we'll be able to leverage our industry relationships in India and beyond to get the latest methodologies, latest best practices, and showcase that to all the participants of the Center of Excellence. We'll be able to share what are the global best practices in terms of procurement that are being adopted by global procurers from US, UK, Europe, and beyond. We'll be able to share our experience of working with effluent treatment plants, CETPs across the world, so that the best practices can be adopted by your organization, and you don't have to do it independently. You know that you have a supporting organization or a supporting infrastructure to help you find answers to some of the pressing questions that your company or your factory might be facing. And so this becomes sort of the go-to place for answering some of those technical and difficult to answer questions, and also for gathering support if you're not able to find funding. If you're I mean, those are the type of support that the Center of Excellence could provide. And this is open for both small, medium, and large companies. So it is not restricted to. So it's going to be an open initiative, and all manufacturing units can become a member of the Center of Excellence. So why, you would be wondering, why should your company get involved? So I sort of try to answer that, but essentially by signing on as a participant to the Center of Excellence, you could showcase your stewardship in handling AMR, and basically contribute and be a co-developer of the Center of Excellence, so that your institute and your organization can also benefit from all the activities of the Center of Excellence. And we are pooling in, at the bottom line, we are pooling in resources from different industries, different stakeholders, government, private sector, and also bilateral agencies like the Swiss Development Corporation, to bring together the different initiatives with one sole objective of making India and other pharmaceutical companies from here global leaders in terms of antibiotic manufacturing, for living up to the expectation of being the pharmacy for the world. And if you have to do that while being sustainable and responsible, I think the Center of Excellence could be sort of the framework or the supporting ecosystem that could help you achieve that. So in the next few slides, I'll just talk a little bit about the details of the Center of Excellence and what are the different facilities that we plan to have, and how. And over the next 6 months, we are trying to detail these out along with our other partners. So like I mentioned, they're going to be training facilities, so they're going to be classrooms. So we are talking to government of Telangana for getting the infrastructure or the land to set up the Center of Excellence. We are talking to some leading pharmaceutical companies. I don't want to name them because they've not signed up officially yet, but we're having late stage discussions with them, also with PSCI, Amr Industry Alliance, who are supporters of the RAMP initiative, for setting up some of the training materials. Professor Reddy from University of Hyderabad, he's organizing a training session for an AMR. So he has agreed to support setting up the training programs. Then we are going to be having a laboratory infrastructure. So we have conducted initial field studies of a few different laboratories in Telangana, and we are looking at like what are the technology gaps in the existing laboratories, and then how can we partner with existing laboratories to increase the capacity of these laboratories, and then also make them partner to the RAMP Center of Excellence. And then we are looking for partners of existing manufacturing units, which can be CETPs or ETPs, which could act as the testbed facility for new technologies for monitoring. Just to give you an example, because Professor Mukherjee is also here. So Professor Mukherjee has come up with this new sensor for monitoring of antibiotic at a very low concentrations, and the cost of monitoring can be significantly reduced. And so if like this testbed can be provided to Professor Mukherjee, he can actually improve the monitoring technology even further. So the idea of this testbed is that we can have 2 or 3 different testbeds of different types of antibiotics to answer some of the technical questions that emerge once new antibiotics are come up or new technologies are coming up. So the Center of Excellence would have a governing body, which would comprise of 2 levels. So there would be a governing council, which would be essentially of people from government, and RAMP is supporting this initiative. And then there would be strategic industry partners who can actually bring in technology and business knowledge to run the Center of Excellence, because we want to make this as an initiative which is of benefit to all the pharmaceutical companies. And then there would be an operational team which would be run by a director and supported by subject matter experts. And then there would be an advisory board from different academic institutions, manufacturing companies like Agilent, because they are the ones who have big budgets on R&D, and also they're coming up with new technologies to support their clients, which are the pharmaceutical industries. Yeah, I mean, so I'll skip this. This is very detailed. So there is a budget. We have worked out a budget for Center of Excellence, and we're looking for more partners to come and join and become co-promoters of the Center of Excellence. So if you would like your organization to be a partner to the Center of Excellence, we would love to share our proposal with you. And like I said, we are already talking to a few leading pharmaceutical companies, and we are in advanced stages of collaboration with them. And some of the cost can actually, so just wanted to clarify, so it doesn't have to be cost in terms of actual cash investment. It can also be in terms of shared services. So if you can offer your facilities for either the test bed or for training programs, that can also be looked at. So it doesn't have to be cash component. It can also be in-kind contributions. Like, for example, Government of Telangana, we're talking about setting up the factory, setting up the Center of Excellence over there. So in terms of timeline, so we are currently in the design phase of the Center of Excellence, and hopefully the remaining of the this year we'll be spending a lot of time in gathering support for the Center of Excellence, and also finalizing the design, which would include engineering drawings and siting of the Center of Excellence. So hopefully that will be completed by end of this year, or the plan is to complete that by end of this year, so that we can officially launch the Center of Excellence in BioAsia in February 2022 or 23. And then the training programs and the testing facilities, we plan to commence them by the first half of 2023. We already have in-kind and moral support from a variety of different organizations, from which are offering technical expertise, academic support, as well as financial support from a bunch of different agencies. And if you would love to partner with us, we would love to partner with you. And you can reach out to Siddharth or me, and we'll be happy to share more details on the Center of Excellence, and both from a beneficiary point of view as well as sort of a co-supporter point of view. And that's it on the Center of Excellence. So I think if you have any questions, we would be happy to take on those questions on the Center of Excellence, or any other questions on RAMP.
Thank you, Nitin. Could you raise your hand in the system in case you have any questions?
So, Mr. Reddy, I'm going to put you on spotlight.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Nitin, actually, this is a very good proposal what you have presented. In fact, I was wondering, probably we can look at whether BDMA can co-partner in this assignment, because for your information, BDMA is already in the process of setting up a training center and training and advanced technology center. In the first phase, we are already putting up the training center and advanced technology center. Actually, we have tied up with IICT and other agencies. Probably that center can be converted to your advanced center, and this facility is coming up in Jidimatla area, where the land has been allotted by the government of Telangana, and the building is already ready. If this proposal is of some interest, maybe the site can be visited and see and what is the area required and other things. And second thing is, my feeling is that an associate BDMA, our approach to the industries will be direct, because they are all our members. So that way, getting their participation and either visits or all those things would be much easier to convince and then take the studies or analysis or any technical things forward. So if you are interested, probably you can contact us and we can see how far it can be taken, because ours is also supported by Government of Telangana.
So absolutely, Mr. Reddy. I mean, there is no other answer. I mean, absolutely.
Okay, you can contact. Let us see whether it can be done or not. Okay.
And like I said, I mean, this center of excellence is supported and has to be promoted by the industry. And BDMA and PSCI and other agencies are very, very important partners to this initiative.
In fact, we had earlier in principle approval from DOP also, but now their cluster development scheme has been relaunched yesterday. So we have to again reapply, and they are very keen on immediately approving it, because it's already an approved project. Because the scheme was getting changed, it was kept under hold.
Right.
Okay.
Sure. We'll be happy to share more details on it after this presentation.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Our vision for this, Dr. Reddy, is that we have BDMI there, we have RAMP there, we have the IITs there, and of course the Government of Telangana and Department of Pharmaceuticals.
What I suggest is probably first you can have a visit to the site and see whether it's okay for you. Then we can think of further taking forward.
Sounds great. Any other comments or questions on the COE?
I see Mr. Agarwal from BDMA has also joined. Mr. Agarwal, do you have any comments?
Yeah, he will also say, okay, Mr. Agarwal, come on.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I think.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So we are meeting again. We have already had, I think, many interactions. So I have time and again told you that BDMA will support this initiative in whichever manner it can do, but we will base our working based on the science. And, because in whatever presentations you have made till now, we are not talking of a cost-effective analysis system. I'm not sure whether in this center of excellence also, whether you are putting some analytical system at PPB levels and whether any test methods have been developed at the PPB levels to develop. That's why the draft notification is on hold. Now, BDMA would support any initiative which is based on science and which is a true requirement of the nation or true requirement of the subject. Because as I think my colleague, Mr. Ishwar Reddy has told earlier that contribution, as per the reports available, contribution of pharma affluents is estimated to be 5% in whatever information is available in the public domain. So while nevertheless, we should not ignore this, and we should address this issue as well. It is equally important whether somebody is doing 30% or 40% or 50% or 5% is equally important. Now, in and around Telangana, most of the plants are now, the requirement is ZLD. And in the ZLD here, unlike in Mr. Manjeet Singh's factory, it is not permitted to be put for horticulture use. Here in India, ZLD means no horticulture use is allowed. So, and the second thing, he was talking about a PNEC value, but PNEC is generally on a mixed, in a mixed stream. Now, if he is not sending his effluent to a mixed stream, on what basis, how much dilution factor is applying for a
hypochlorite agent?
Hello? Hello?
Please go ahead.
Hello? If he is not discharging it outside, on what dilution factor he is obtaining, he's saying that he testing those PNEC values. But PNEC value needs a dilution. His presentation also said that it is at a mixed place. So I think there are a lot of unanswered questions, and if you people are really ready with it, BDMA will partner with you. We will work out some initiatives so that we are with you. Please don't treat us as a as a opponent, but we are critically asking you questions so that we partner with a proper objective and proper alternative. So, thank you very much. I wish you all the best for the initiative that you people are taking.
Yeah. Thank you, Singh.
Hi, Mr. Agarwal. You were making a reference to me. Is there any question for me?
Yeah, the question was, in your presentation, you have submitted a PNAC value for the effluent, which is coming post-RO. But post-RO and post-ultrafiltration, if you are not sending it to a mixed stream, then with what dilution factor are you calculating the PNAC values?
No, that's fine. When I talk about post-RO, so that particular facility, we do not send to any water body. So that's why we make sure that our post-RO, it is compliant to the PNAC value. Okay, that is taking a full, eliminating complete risk. I agree with you. PNAC value basically applies in a mixing zone. That's fine. I agree with you. Yeah. That's why I showed, what is the treatment technology, our facilitate CONSA, because which provides, let us say, PNAC compliance even at the end of the pipeline. So that was my purpose. Yeah.
Thank you. I think the treatment technology is more or less same. Maybe some improvement on some operational care must be there additionally, but treatment systems are mostly same as they are existing in India. So
yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. Yeah.
So
thank you. If there are no further questions, are there any more questions?
I don't see any more hands up. Maybe we can close it down.
So can I invite Mr. Yuvraj from Department of Pharmaceuticals to give the closing remarks, please? Over to you, sir.
Okay. Okay. So thank you. And it was an intense deliberations from both the industry as well as by the various stakeholders. I'm seeing R.K. Agarwalji. We met yesterday only. And I saw the presentation of Mr. Manjeet Singh, a detailed presentation of what they're doing, and also about the various provisions for the Center of Excellence, which the entire deliberations also were going about it. So now I have 2-3 points of after hearing all of you. One, as I told in the initial remarks, and again I'm telling that the DOP is in the process of supporting the clusters, so that they will be able to solve the issues at their level itself. Okay, so now like BDMA is coming up with the research facility and other people. So we require that this sort of a support can be given at multiple levels instead of because we have API clusters, especially antibiotic manufacturing across a few locations in the country. Where's potential maybe Hyderabad and Andhra Pradesh, but we have other places also. So the model should be a replicable model so that we'll be able to handle anything away from the local manufacturer, especially of MSMEs. You are bringing them to tell them to come to Mumbai, Pune, or anywhere else other than the location. It will be difficult for them to have a sustenance one. So the model, whatever we are talking to provide assistance, it should be a modular and replicable model. Those are called. So it should be a replicable model so that it will be able to do more justice to the industry, especially those we need the assistance. Okay. And second thing is we want the involvement of a scientific institution like NIPER or somebody else from the inception, that it has a technical handholding during the entire course. And arrangement, whatever we are going to happen there, should be a trilateral arrangement with any concerned government body, maybe state government or central government, and institution like NIPERs, and also the other partners, maybe RAMP or somebody else along with the cluster. The cluster may be by VDMA, maybe cluster by some other cluster. So it should be sort of an arrangement so that it will be able to sustain. If it is for the local demand-based one, okay. If you are thinking for a larger high-end research-based center of excellence, okay, then yes, it can be only one place. It may be in any one NIPER or whatever the suggestion comes out of the discussion with the industry. So we have no issues there. But if it is a replicable model, what we are proposing for the industries to be get benefited locally, then it should be handled by some institution like NIPER. Otherwise, it was sustaining the long, and also because whatever we are supporting, government will be supporting, will not be able to support for quite a long time. It should be also on some model of a self-sustaining model. So that is another issue I'm telling. But moreover, I think BDMA yesterday they assured that whatever the studies they are done, they are going to host it in their website. And because now Agrawalji is also there, I requested the industries also in the morning that whatever they are doing with respect to environment as well as AMR can be hosted in the website as a small note, so that the materials are available in the public domain of whatever they are done. Now today Manjeet Singh has given a very good presentation. So now all these things can be put it in the public domain so that we know what is being done also. And thanks RAMP and NIPER for organizing this webinar. So I'm seeing that till the end we have around 80 and 90 people who are fully hooked in on the webinar, even though the number went up to 140 initially, but okay. So it is expected that after 2 hours people will get a fatigue. Is a natural one. So thank you, Siddhartha, Prakash and Singh. Thank you all. Weapon. I request the RAMP or NIPER to send a salient discussion points in this webinar, so that we'll be able to take forward the decision. So that is a main thing from my side. And thank you very much, all the participants. And if Madam is there also, thank you very much to Director NIPER Madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think that was very inspiring words to close the webinar. I'd also like to, on behalf of RAM and NIPER and the Association Council of EHS Professionals, thank everybody for participating. Very active discussion. We will be sending the salient points of this discussion and next steps with everybody, so we can follow up in the weeks to come. And look forward to collaboration to jointly address AMR. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.